Peter knew that if he just kept his eyes on Jesus, he could defy science and walk on water. Although the storm surrounded him, Peter looked to Jesus. Can I tell you this morning, if you're going through a storm, look to Jesus. If you're surrounded by circumstances and situations that you don't understand, look to Jesus. The winds and the waves may be crashing in, but I got news for you today. If you keep looking to Jesus, you will not falter or you won't sink. But the second Peter took his eyes off Jesus, the conditions around him became his focus. All of a sudden, it wasn't Jesus he was looking at. It was doubt that consumed him. It was fear that gripped him. And he started to sink because he took his eyes off of the Waymaker. Jesus will come to you in your storm if you will keep your eyes on him. Look at verse 31. And Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? I just heal people. I just fed 17,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves. I almost did that wrong. 2 fish and 5 loaves. I'm from the eastern Kentucky. We don't count past 10. I just did all of those things, and you're doubting me. But here is what happened. Jesus caught Peter when Peter was close to him. You know what that shows me? Peter had to take a few steps out of that boat. Oh, y'all don't think about it. He didn't just hop out of the boat and start sinking. Jesus was off in the distance. He had to take a few steps towards Jesus. So many times we quit on the boat, right? We quit over the side of the boat, and we look at the water here. At least Peter took a few steps, and he kept walking. Remember, the next time you're going through a storm, stay close to Jesus, because Jesus couldn't reach out and grab him if he was 100 yards away. He had to have taken a few steps toward him. Listen, you may be tossed. I'm talking to somebody in here this morning. You may be barely floating, and you may be about to go underwater, but Psalms 34:18 says this: the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are, rescues those whose spirit are crushed this morning. If your spirit's crushed, the Waymaker, the rescuer, is on the way. The righteous face many troubles, but the Lord comes to the rescue each time. There is nothing that can stop Jesus from getting to you. He is ready to reach out his hand at any moment in time. All you got to do is call him up. I ain't getting all Pentecostal here. Oh, I could sing you some Pentecostal old songs that tell you, call him up. But he's there for you. All you got to do is speak to him. Come on Wednesday night at corporate prayer where we're going to all get together and we're going to pray. God is going to change some things because that's what changes things. He was ready to reach out his hand and walk with him, and Jesus spoke to Peter's little faith. And we focus on Peter's little faith, but a little bit of faith is better than no faith at all. The guys in the boat stayed in the boat, right? Apparently they didn't have any faith. So we want to give Peter a hard way to go because he sunk. They were still sitting in the boat. And they were probably going, Peter, what are you doing? Dude, you're crazy. Don't you see the winds and the waves? And don't you see everything that's going on? I'm staying in this perfectly good boat because I ain't going out there. It's like people said something about going skydiving. Why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Some of y'all might be skydivers in here. I don't think she would go, and I'd be like, I'm holding on. But they were saying, you really don't know what's out there, Peter. Where are you going? Can I just tell you something? Be careful who you get in the boat with. If you focus on the people around you, you can go one of two ways. You can go forward or you can go backwards. So many times we put people in our boat and all of it, they're rowing the other way. You're like, I'm going this direction. No, I think I'm going to go back that direction. Be careful who you get in the boat with. Because our focus, listen, I stole this one. Our focus is where our faith is. What you focus on is where you will finish. Come on, our focus is where our faith is. You runners out there, you focus on the finish line, right? Me, I'm going about 100 yards and I'm saying, peace. But Jason and them, they run like 3 or 4 miles a day, and many of you all run like that. But a lot of times you have to think about the finish line. And our focus is where our faith is. Focus finishes where faith starts. Jesus wasn't calling Peter to the water. Listen to me. He was calling him to a new level of faith. He was telling him to get out of the boat and into the water. Even when our faith falters, Jesus is always there. Even though Peter's faith faltered, he still got out of the boat. I think that's why later on Jesus could say, upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. You know, the guy that got out of the boat. He even said it after Peter had denied him because he knew the faith that Peter had. He said, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. This is the same guy that got out of the boat and the same guy that sank and denied Jesus. But Jesus saw something different in him. Look at verse 32. And when they climbed back into the boat, that's Jesus and Peter, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. Can't really explain you feeding 17,000 people. Can't really explain how you made the deaf hear and the eyes of the blind open, but you really are God now. Can I just tell you this much? You can be ruined or you can be refined by your storms. It's your choice how you navigate through them. Storms and rough times can be good. Because some of the greatest, listen to me, some of the greatest lessons you can learn can be learned in the storms. There's a couple different types of storms. There's the storm of correction. Ouch. That's the one, Pastor Johnny, we don't like the correction storm, do we? And God puts us in that place because we've been going in the other direction and we've been trying to fight our own battles and we've been not trusting him. He puts us in that storm of correction to turn us around. There's also a storm of perfection. And this is where God is putting you through the storm to bring you out for a better purpose. Listen, 95% of the storms, 100% of the storms I've ever been through, I probably put on myself. But God can take you through the storm, even if you did it to yourself, even if it was put on you by someone else. He can take you through that storm and perfect you on the other side of that. Storms can do a couple of things. They can make you run or they can make you draw back to God. You can try to fix them or you can understand that it makes us to depend on the waymaker, the miracle worker, the promise keeper. It can take us back and remind us of how good it is, or we can stay stuck, as Pastor Minnie said. Jesus had a plan from the moment he told the disciples to cross over the lake. And you know what that plan required? It required wind and it required waves. But it's funny, why did the wind cease as soon as Jesus got back into the boat? I think it's because they were no longer needed. They had served their purpose already. The storm that they feared and that they thought would destroy them, Jesus was actually using this as the next step, preparing them for where they were going into the future. None of them really understood the magnitude of God's plan to use them and change the world. You know, these same people that are in this boat who turned the world upside down in the book of Acts. God can use anyone in the storm. But they had to cross over. They had to face their storm. They had to work through the wind. Come on. Sometimes you got to work through the wind to get to the other side of your destiny and where God wants you to be. Sometimes you got to go through the waves and the storms to get where God is really calling you to be.